Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Freak Show. I'm your host, Cinder Soleil. I recorded this video, me doing this, 2 days ago. And in light of what we're learning from a certain file dump in recent days, I decided I need to redo this tier list. And it's gonna sound fiery, but bear with me, guys. This tier list, it's not just a single-use one. I uploaded this one to the tier maker site. If you guys want to try this, and maybe if you're a streamer and you want to stream yourself doing this, or if you just want to try it for fun with some buddies, this one will be available on the website. It is just called Conspiracy Theories 1. So we got some in here that are just kind of ridiculous, and we're just going to laugh at them, basically. Some of these are just the most classics, right? We're going through the classics. And some of them are more recent and more sinister. And that's the main area that I wanted to redo. Because, wow, I was way too generous with our government. So let's start. The Roswell Crash. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, maybe you're not American, maybe you're just not in the loop on this stuff. I want to say it was 70s, it might have been even earlier than that. The idea was that it was in Roswell, New Mexico, and a farmer discovered strange, inorganic material that looked like aluminum, basically, just shredded and leading to a wreck site, I believe, like on his property. Now he called local authorities called in national authorities called in the FBI, and eventually it escalated into a conspiracy theory that it was a crashed alien spaceship, whatever they recovered. Most of these are, of course, going to be recreations. The original photos would be black and white like this. Yeah, so people basically saw material like this and assumed it was a UFO. That they even recovered an alien body in some cases, where the truth has not always been out there. You knockin' X-Files, man. You knockin' X-Files. 40s, so it was even earlier than I thought. You get the idea. What do we know about the Roswell Crash? So, in short, the Roswell Crash is about a farmer discovering something weird on his property. The incident was enough to catch the attention of federal authorities, particularly the FBI, and the CIA, of course, which at the time would have been extremely paranoid about, this is the paranoia about communism, and which, to be fair, is valid. We should have also been worried about cronyism, but communism ain't much better. They would have been concerned that this was like a Russian craft or something. Maybe they thought it was extraterrestrial. Either way, they wanted their hands on it first, and they probably wouldn't have told the people shit. I'm gonna put it at the top and not likely, just because it looks just like aluminum, and aluminum's not an unidentified extraterrestrial metal, but I'm not going to put anything past our government. Deep state. Does the deep state exist? To be fair, a lot of this depends on how you define the deep state, right? So the deep state, some people will think it's the Illuminati, some people will think it is QAnon. Some tards might actually think it's, Trump and his cabinet because they're fascists. But when I think deep state, and when most people think deep state, it's basically a shadow government or just faceless bureaucrats that are doing the actual work, that are actually controlling what happens. And, actually, what conspiracy? I define the deep state as unelected people controlling the country, like judges that are putting pauses on federal actions, like bureaucrats in California and their stupid social programs that are all corrupt and ridden with fraud. Same with Minneapolis and Minnesota, same with New York City. And all of them have some creepy shit going on, some ulterior motive under the surface, right? Hopefully this makes sense. Trump tries to get an action done. Magically, a judge puts a pause on it and the entire country has to come to a grinding halt until it gets resolved. Yet, when Obama or Clinton or several, if not all administrations before them did the exact same thing that Trump is trying to propose, like deporting illegal immigrants, nothing happened. And that's not saying Trump is innocent in all this, but at least in his first term, he was the more popular sort of option. I think that really scared a lot of the establishment sorts. Establishment, that's a good word for it. I think of the deep state as the establishment politicians, the uniparty, all that, the people who will fight tooth and nail to keep the Epstein files from coming out, whether it be Trump or the majority of Congress and Senate. So maybe it's not even the deep state, maybe it's just the state. The Illuminati still exists. Okay, this is interesting. I want to do like a whole video on secret societies. I really do. Hold on, the printer's going off. There's another one in here that's a big one. Like the Illuminati, Skull and Bones, the Freemasons, Bohemian Grove, even like more niche ones that are more like civilian instead of elite, like the Order. Ooh, I don't want to talk about that one just yet. That one's a gnarly one. If I talk about that one, it's going to be in the full context, because if some people fall down that rabbit hole, I don't want to be the one responsible. Anyway. The history of the Illuminati. A lot of people are so ignorant to the Illuminati, the only time they've heard it come up is in like crazy cookies conspiracy theories and people making fun of said conspiracy theories. So they fall into this hole of thinking it just doesn't exist, period. Where does this even come from? Actually, the Illuminati did exist back in the 1600s, so during like the Spanish Inquisition time. It was an organization that believed in, like, they were higher beings, they were closer to this exalted light. Illuminati. Lumen. Light. That's where the terminology comes from. Eventually their leader, whose name was Maria, I don't remember her full name, peasant Spanish girl, and they believed she was so close to the exalted light that she could have direct communication with the Virgin Mary and Jesus himself. And during this time of the Inquisition, heresy will get you killed. Somehow Maria she stood trial many times, but she actually walked away fine. And a lot of Illuminati operatives also walked away. Some of them didn't, but it was also because of the way they operated. They would snuggle up to powerful people, like princes, royalty at the time, basically. So they slowly spread, that ideology is slowly spread to, like, Egypt was a big one, France, Denmark, I believe the UK too. The most recognizable Illuminati group formed, which was the Bavarian Illuminati, and that's what everybody thinks when they think Illuminati. That's when they actually developed that name. And that society, they really got cozy with governments, they really got cozy with royalty, they really got cozy with high-standing people, famous like musicians and artists from that time. They even kind of did a secret society team-up with the Freemasons, and they were talking in their own code and stuff. It's really creepy if you look into it. And basically what happened is eventually the Bavarian government said, no more secret societies, Illuminati has to disperse. Basically, the idea is that the Illuminati fizzled out from there. Like, immediately dissolved, fizzled out, they're gone. But as we know, banning something doesn't get rid of it. Alright, you ban abortions, people will still get backstreet abortions. You ban drugs, people will still buy them off the streets. You ban guns, there's still going to be more guns than people in the country. They're just not going to disappear because you wrote a law. What the conspiracy theory actually is not just that the Illuminati exists, it's that just banning the Illuminati back then did not cause it to get wiped out. A lot of people believe they hid among the Freemasons, a lot of people believe they continued to hide behind royalty and governments. And that's why there's this intrinsic why the Illuminati is always referenced in terms to like a shadow government. Because that's how they operated, even when they did exist, for sure, 100%, is they would snuggle up to the elite. And of course, because America is such a young country, it's very possible that if there was a surviving Illuminati operative, and they were still doing like Illuminati things, right, then they could have been doing that like at the founding of America. It could have been inherently tied into the founding of America. So that's a conspiracy theory, is that the Illuminati does still exist, and they are deeply embedded in the American government, like from the beginnings, basically. If not through the Illuminati themselves, then through other groups like the Freemasons, which most of the founders, maybe not most, but a lot of the most prominent ones, even George Washington himself, were Freemasons. Now, Masonry is a different thing from the Illuminati, but they did team up. We have historical records of this. They would even talk in code to each other about God knows what. The Bavarian Illuminati, their stated purpose was to install a religion of reason, quote-unquote. Which, if you're an atheist, it sounds nice, right? Because you're just fighting against, theocratic sort of ideology, right? Yeah, globalism isn't much better. And that's what a lot of it sounds like. So does the Illuminati still exist? That's the question. The Illuminati did exist, 100% for sure, that's undeniable. Do they still exist? That's the question. And do they still have some level of control in American government, or European government, or Canadian government, or any government at large. I'm going to put this in plausible. Guys, the things we're finding in the Epstein files, I mean, come on. We literally have files that are talking about the Clintons eating babies, and the Clintons and the Bushes eating babies and killing them and roasting them and stuff. And we're still, some of us are still kind of hesitant to say, oh, the government's up to some shady shit. Maybe 2 years ago, I would put at least some of these in not likely or even actually retarded. At this point, anything's plausible to me, okay? Subliminal messaging. So everybody knows this, right? Especially if you have heard about the Satanic Panic. Basically, the idea was that media was trying to influence especially kids with subliminal messaging, like hiding words in Disney scenes. This is a wacky one, bear with me. You know that part in Aladdin where Aladdin is on Jasmine's balcony and he's trying to clear the air with her, and Jasmine, of course, she gets pissed off and tells him to go away, and Raja starts to growl at him and try to chase him off the balcony. There's a moment where Aladdin starts like kind of muttering to the tiger, like, go away, shoot tiger, shoot tiger. Some 80s Karens swore that when he was saying that, shoot tiger, shoot, he was saying, good teenager, take off your clothes. Look this up. I'm not even kidding. You can't, I'm going to look it up. The Lion King allegedly had sex in the dust when Simba lays down like this, but actually it was SFX as a nod to the special effects department. This one was kind of creepy. It says, ask about the Illuminati in the background of DuckTales here. In my mech scene, it's gone, but that was weird. Probably just trolling at this point. Yeah, the rescuer shows a topless woman. That was like allegedly an accident. It was supposed to be a prank, but then they actually ran the video and it was sold. Subliminal imagery appeared in almost every version of The Rescuers from its 1977 release until the 1999 recall. If you have a version of The Rescuers from that time period, it might be hiding a... Oh, here. Aladdin talks about taking off clothes. In truth, he was saying, scat, good, tiger, take off and go. I've listened to this moment, and you can listen to it yourself. I've generated subtitles to see what AI thinks of it. I've asked AI what it thinks of it. I've asked friends what they think of it. I've run this through so many times. Nobody has ever said that they hear this. Everyone hears, good tiger, take off and go. How do you get teenagers out of tiger? But you know what? I'm not going to put this in actually tarded, because you know why? The TV does try to indoctrinate you. I mean, watch CNN. It's just no subliminal. Kind of subliminal. When they subtly edit Alex Peretti to look a little more handsome, so more people will be pissed, because that's literally how women function, apparently. Like Luigi Mangione, oh my god. They're talking about Leah Thomas, and they literally edit its face to make it look more feminine. You can't make it up. And then, of course, we always know the deceptive edits, right? The Very Fine People hoax. People still believe that shit. It was literally the result of a deceptive edit by CNN. They literally clipped out the next 2 seconds. This is literally the equivalent of me saying, wow, I hate black olives. And then somebody taking it out of context and then saying, wow, I hate black. And then using that to say, oh my god, Cinder's racist! Cinder's a racist! And somehow it works. That's the saddest part, is that it works. So you know what? We can't prove it's satanic messaging. We can't prove that Disney is trying to get kids to worship Satan and take off their clothes or something. But the TV will still indoctrinate you. Alright, fluoride for mind control. Okay. So this is an interesting one, because the fluoride conspiracy theory goes back to like even the 70s, I think they were still talking about it, because it was lumped in with the craze about lead. Like literally, there were still entire towns where they had massive lead contamination. It was having a detrimental effect on especially kids, because lead affects your brain, and it affects like developing brains the most. And it just absolutely ruined so many kids and families. And the government would literally try to say, oh, lead is not dangerous at these levels, just to get the heat off just to get the smoke off their ass, right? Just to avoid investing money in a cleanup procedure, just to avoid compensating all the people who are affected. It was the same deal with radium. When radium was like first discovered, people thought it was healthy for you. People thought it was health-giving, beneficial, like snake oil. And we had radium toothpaste, radium-infused water canisters, radium pills, radium suppositories. People went freaking nuts over radium. The teeth start glowing like, it's healthy. That's not a healthy glow you got, it's a radioactive glow. Of course, so many people who actually took the medicine, who took the water, who drank the water, who took the suppositories, who brushed their teeth with radium, all of them inevitably started getting, like, insane cancers. Their bones would literally just dissolve. The radium girls, whose job it was, they were hired by the government to paint radium-infused paint, because radium glows in the dark, to paint radium onto watches, and they would lick they would lick the paintbrush in between to get like a fine point to paint the numbers right in the dials. And when the radium girls inevitably got horrendous cancers, their jaws would dissolve. They got honeycomb-looking jaws. Some tryptophobia shit. The government and the company both. They both tried to delay their trial so long that the radium girls would just die before they would have to compensate them. It was that evil. And of course, they're always finding, like, no, radium is healthy. It took forever to actually get radium recognized as a dangerous substance. It took forever to get radium recognized as dangerous. It took even longer to get lead recognized as dangerous. What about fluoride? The EPA just sued because it's been proven, study after study, fluoride is toxic. In the amount we consume it, at least. A little bit, paint it on your teeth to make it look white. That's not going to do much. I still wouldn't recommend it, but that much is not going to do much. When you're drinking it regularly from your water supply, when you're bathing in it, brushing your teeth in it, especially the amount of fluoride in some people's water, it has been proven to have a toxic effect. It reduces your IQ, it stunts your brain, it has a terrible effect on developing minds. You know what? It's not mind control. It's not like you're drinking fluoridated water and suddenly you're just like, all hail government. I must trust the CIA. That's not what's happening. Nobody's saying that's what's happening. Well, some people are crazy enough to say that's what's happening. But what's the best form of mind control? The subliminal messaging thing, right? The CNN, the deceptive edits. It only works on stupid people. If you make a population stupid by fluoridating their water, maybe they are easier to control. I'm gonna bump that up to likely but unproven. Because of that. It's not that literally fluoride is like the frickin' Ludovico technique. Fluoride isn't literally like entering your brain and telling you to trust the US government no matter what. But it is making you dumber, and dumber people are the easiest to manipulate. There's a reason that all these schools that are having these protests, these walkout protests over every new social cause, right? Their literacy rates are like anywhere from 20 to 0. There's one in California. It wasn't 1%, it wasn't 2%, it was 0. Math is not far off. Like, even in, like, Georgia, states with, like, where they're, like, their schooling system's not peak. Or they're still using, like, dinosaur methods, trying to get kids to learn the old-fashioned way, and that's non-engaging, while kids are exhausted, and nowadays probably stressed the fuck out from all the garbage the media is pumping at them, and all the brain rot. And the solution is drugs to get them to comply. Trailing off here. The point being, dumbing down your population does make them easier to control. It's not direct mind control, but it's kind of a loophole. Lizard people in the government, that's actually retarded. I don't believe that one. Politicians are heartless individuals and cold-blooded. But I don't think they're lizard people. The feds killed JFK and MLK. Granted, I have not looked much into the MLK case. I know he was assassinated, obviously, and I know there's a lot of shady shit and a lot of conspiracy theories around feds killing him. JFK, I've looked much more into. He was literally going to expose, quote-unquote, the FBI and the CIA for them doing crazy and weird shit. And then just days later, he's assassinated. And even the unredacted files, because bear in mind, most of these files are probably burned by now. But even in what was left over, that the FBI unredacted, even what was left over, we still saw a suspected second shooter and possible involvement with foreign governments. I say that's fucking weird. That's going in the top of likely but unproven, because obviously there's confirmation bias to that, right? The files don't say that the feds killed him, and, you know, the not conspiracy theorists are gonna be like, see, I told you so. And then the people who still believe are gonna be like, they just burned the files. Like, there's no way to prove that they burned the files, obviously, especially nowadays. So what are you gonna do? We can't prove it. But I believe The truth is out there, guys. Fake moon landing, well, that's actually tarded. Especially nowadays. And it's so easy to prove, too. It's like round earth. Oh, I should have put flat earth in here. Oh my god. I know a flat earther in real life. Also, the flat earther is literally married to someone who works in aviation, where part of charting flights is you have to account for the Earth's curvature. Back to business. COVID was a psy-op. Guys, bear with me. This was a disease that was made in a Chinese lab that was quote-unquote leaked by a Chinese lab. It led to this mass campaign of comply or else. If you don't wear the mask, if you don't stand 6 feet apart, if you don't get the jab, you're going to be ostracized from society. And now we literally have the World Economic Forum. I'll show you. People try to say they didn't say this. This is the World Economic Forum's website. COVID-19 was the test of social responsibility. A huge number of unimaginable restrictions for public health were adopted by billions of citizens around the world. There were numerous examples globally of maintaining social distancing, wearing masks, mass vaccinations, and acceptance of contact tracing applications for public health, which demonstrated the core of individual social responsibility. Even when the creator of the mRNA vaccine was telling you this isn't safe, the 19 healthy athletes that just suddenly collapsed and died after getting the jab, the people who started having facial seizures, the people who started getting paralyzed, the people who started just fainting randomly, that didn't exist. Or it wasn't the jab. Which, by the way, a lot of vaccines can give you those side effects, and it's not the vaccine itself. A lot of the time, when people talk about how vaccines are dangerous, it's not the vaccines themselves. An inactive disease, that could be beneficial. That could train your immune system, as vaccines are intended to. It's mainly the ingredients they're using in the vaccines, like mercury or formaldehyde, that are extremely toxic. Like literally, a drop of mercury, guys, a drop of mercury will require like a full biohazard unit, and the spaceman-looking suits, right? Requires all of them just to clean up like a drop of mercury. Especially if it's something like dimethylmercury. That's even more toxic. But there's no way that substance in vaccine is dangerous. Okay, I'm not saying all vaccines are gonna kill you, right? I say it's like a risk-reward ratio, right? I literally think nothing of somebody who wants to get a vaccine for their child. And I also don't think everything of someone who doesn't. Like, I won't judge you either way. Why is somebody choosing to go the latter route? Why is that suddenly seen as, like, a death sentence for the child, especially freaking child? A child will get sick for, like, 2 days and then jump right back up like nothing happened, But yeah, was COVID a psy-op? Granted, this could just be, like, we're using COVID as, like, what happened during COVID as, like, a study now. It's not proof that they were actually doing it, COVID was intentional. But you know what? It's a man-made disease that came from a lab, and then what followed was like a whole campaign of just obey the government, obey your local government, your local friendly government. Fuck COVID. I know we don't like to think about COVID because there's a level of trauma that comes with those memories, but like there is weird shit during COVID that so many people just don't remember. Gates funding dangerous vaccines. We just went over why I'm kind of skeptical about vaccines. Not because vaccines in and of themselves are dangerous. It's because the ingredients in them that I'm skeptical of. It's not just speculative from stories I've heard or X stories or whatever, and X posts. It's also just personal experience. I have had horrible reactions to vaccines. I've watched people go through horrible reactions. I know somebody who died from a terrible vaccine reaction. And they tried to say it wasn't the vaccine, and it took really prodding the flesh to actually get them to admit, okay, it was a bad reaction to the vaccine, or bad, Didn't even need it either. It was like a flu shot. Fucking flu shot. If you're a healthy adult and you're getting a flu shot, what the fuck, dude? Just get the flu. But Gates specifically strikes me as a really creepy frickin' guy. First of all, we saw his role in the Epstein files, right? He's creepy for that reason alone. But then we also have, Bill Gates was originally a climate doomist. Like, full-on doomist. Like, if we don't lower the temperature immediately, regardless of how it impacts humanity, we're going to see mass extinctions in 2 years. And he's saying that 2 years later, too. He was one of the OG climate doomists. He was totally in on that shit. Now, suddenly, after making massive investments in vaccines, in pharmaceuticals. Now suddenly he has pivoted to saying, okay, just lowering the temperature, we need to pivot to the benefit of humanity. And humanity, vaccines are the most important thing. Yes, I'm sure the starving child in Africa, the number one thing he needs right now is fucking a vaccine and not food or something, right? The diseases, the insane diseases they get over there that don't even have vaccines. And even if they did, they would still likely die from it because those diseases are that dangerous. Yeah, I don't think vaccines are the number one concern for, like, the needy people of the world, okay? Bear in mind, this is also the guy who was all about, like, overpopulation and telling and shaming Americans, especially, even though American birth rates are really low, and so are Europeans, telling us, lower your birth rate! Don't have kids! It'll end the world! People in India can still have 15 plus kids, that's fine. That's fine. Not gonna say anything about that. Americans having one kid, oh my god, you're destroying the world, oh my god! And now this guy very suddenly pivots. It could just be a money incentive, but at the same time, you really want to put something in your bloodstream that a guy who believes in overpopulation and doesn't want you to have kids, you're gonna trust that guy's vaccine. I'm gonna say plausible. I can't prove any of this, obviously. I don't even want to put it in likely. But it's plausible. I'd say it's more plausible than the Illuminati. The Illuminati. Hitler lived. Okay, this was a weird one. Allegedly, according to this conspiracy, Hitler survived his suicide attempt and fled to South America. There was one of his supporters in Argentina, or an Argentinian hotel worker, who supported Hitler's cause, and literally said, if Hitler needs a place to stay, we'll be open to him. And then this photo was leaked by a South American CIA asset of a guy that looked like Hitler, at that same hotel, sort of. And even this wasn't like so niche that it's just this is just another thing that some schizo meth head in the trailer park has to say. This is actually like in a CIA file. They actually suspected that Hitler might be alive and hiding out in South America. Looking into it myself, it's very inconclusive, those files, but looking into it myself, I'm like, It's plausible. A lot of these dictators, even the ones that allegedly were killed or shot or something, it turns out they're just hiding out in another country, especially like the Middle Eastern dictators. They'll get absolutely stomped in Iraq and then hide out in Qatar, and then Qatar will get stomped out and then they'll hide in Pakistan or something. It happens all the time. Egypt was another big one, especially like during the 40s, 50s, 60s, that sort of time period. They were a hot spot for terrorism because they didn't think Israel was allowed to exist, which, you know my opinions on Israel. The right is telling me, Cinder, you must defend Israel, you must. And the left is telling me, Cinder, Israel is the root of all evil. It's the root of all this awful things. And the Groypers are telling me, Cinder, the Jews are controlling the world. Israel is controlling the world. Look at it. You know where I sit? I don't fucking care. I think there's gross shit in Israel's government. I have nothing against Israelis in general, okay, guys? Judge me. Whatever. Anyway. That's why I'm giving this any sort of traction, is because there's not really a lot of documentation about Hitler's bunker, about finding Hitler's body or anything. And we do know that a lot of these quote-unquote killed or ousted leaders do wind up just hiding in other countries, going underground. So that in itself makes it a plausible theory, but it's not likely, and it's obviously not proven. This one grainy photograph of a guy who looks like Hitler. It could just be a German dude that happens to look like Hitler who grew his mustache like him. I don't know. Area 51. Okay. Guys, we suspected Area 51 existed in like the 40s. That early. For those of you who may not know, maybe you heard of it, but you never looked into it. Area 51 is a secret government aircraft base in the Mojave Desert in Nevada. The conspiracy is that they hide alien technology underground there. When did the government finally admit that Area 51 is real? Israel! Oh my god! It was Israel all along! Israel was responsible for Area 51. No, I feel like a real conspiracy theorist, blaming everything on Israel. The AI says U.S. government officially acknowledged the existence of Area 51 in 2013. The CIA released a formally classified document detailing the history of the U-2 spy plane program, which was tested at the site. There you go. People were saying this base existed in the 1940s, and everyone was called crazy for believing in that shit. 2013 rolls around. That's like 70 years later. More than 70 years later. It took them to finally admit Area 51 exists. They didn't say it was alien technology, but they said it was experimental secret, top secret, confidential government technology, right? Another coin for the Alex Jones is right tip jar, right? In the early 2000s, he was also saying that elites are eating babies. Everybody thought that was crazy, even I did at the time. And now we got the Epstein files today, and what do you know? We have many stories of elites eating babies. Granted, we don't have the photographic evidence. We don't have the forensic evidence. I mean, it came straight from the horse's mouth. How many of our conspiracies are going to be proven right? Maybe there are lizard people in the government. God only knows. Area 51. I mean, what conspiracy? It exists. I can't prove that they're using alien technology, but they're definitely using some weird shit. Oh my god. Like the discombobulator. Sort of my own theory going on is that the discombobulator that they used in Venezuela to get through Maduro's guard, it was like this device that basically turned off the people. It fucked up with their brains so bad it was like making their eyes, their nose, their ears hemorrhage and making them throw up uncontrollably. It was a discombobulator, everybody calls it. It reminded me of this story that I heard just listening to one of my mysterious story, true crime sort of podcasts. I think it was Mr. Ballin even. Somebody was in the Mojave Desert, close to Area 51. And it was a cave diver, a spelunker if you will. And he was going to explore this cave that had like an M-shaped entrance. And he went in, and as he's descending, not even that far into it, he starts getting a terrible feeling. He starts feeling nauseous. He starts feeling like his bones are vibrating. And then he backs out because it's so freaking weird that even this guy who regularly goes spelunking, cave diving, you gotta have some balls to go cave diving. And even that guy's getting freaked out. I take that as a bad sign. Whatever he was feeling, it was gnarly. And he later, after enough internet pressure, said he would go back to the M cave. Only he found the same M-shaped opening, but no cave. The cave was closed off. A few days later, he went missing. I don't know if they ever found his body. I don't know what the final word was about how he died, or if they found the body or what. But man finds weird cave near Area 51. Man gets discombobulated. Man tries to go back to cave later. Cave is closed off. Man goes missing. There's weird shit around Area 51, alright? And there's weird technology being handled there. That's why I'm putting it here. If you don't want to believe it's alien technology, fine. I'm not sold. I'm not 100% sold on aliens either, if I have to be honest. But there's weird shit going on there. You can believe that much. Okay, next one. Holocaust was fake. That's actually retarded. What I don't get about the Holocaust denial is that some of them try to say the reason the Holocaust was fake is that it was caused not by the Nazis, but by Ashkenazi Jews working for the Nazis. And I'm like, okay. First of all, that's retarded too, but even if I entertain this idea, if I entertain your idea and say, okay, does it change that over 1 million people still died? Is it not a Holocaust because it was caused by somebody else and not who you thought it was? You're literally not denying that the Holocaust existed, you're just denying who was the cause of it. And that's really retarded to me. So, I don't know. That's actually retarded. Whoever you think caused it, the Holocaust was real. Jewish overlords. Ah boy. You just heard my stance on Israel, guys. The right wants me to pledge allegiance to the frickin' Star of David. So another faction of the right thinks that they're responsible for everything terrible in the world. A big faction of the left who tries to masquerade as the social justice, we're against anti-Semitism crowd. They frickin' stub their toe and blame Israel. Like, what? Anybody can criticize the Israeli government without A, being anti-Semitic, and B, without thinking Jewish overlords are controlling the world. Israel has a shady government in the same way America has a shady government. It's a country with a shady government. Many like them exist. Israel's got weird connections in US politics that I don't like. Granted, this is something that both the right and left will remark on, but for different reasons a lot of the time, is there's a lot of weird money trails between like Israel and Israeli elite and Israeli government, Mossad even, and American politics, which why is a foreign government. If this was like Somalia giving money to Ilhan Omar's campaign, we would call that election interference from a foreign government. We'd call that illegal. And it is illegal. It should be illegal. I would want Ilhan Omar arrested if she got money from fucking Somalia and Somalian politicians in America. I also don't want that happening with Israel. Israel's an ally, unlike Somalia. Israel is a nice country, unlike Somalia. But stop influencing our country, please. Keep your money out of our politics, please. And it's not just Israel. It's not just Israeli government I can keep that energy for. I can keep that energy for fucking George Soros. I can keep that energy for any European government. For Canada. I can keep that energy for Canada. For Mexico. Mexico's a big one. For China. China's a big one. Russia. Why does Israel get the exception when we talk about foreign governments and their weird slush fund donations to American politicians? No, I don't like any of it. But at the same time, the idea that everything is controlled by the Jews. Everything bad in the world, it's caused by the Jews. They're in their tunnels under New York City, plotting, scheming, counting their shekels as they discuss their world domination plans. Yeah, I don't think I believe that. So the Jewish overlords thing, no. That's going at the top. Because again, weird money trails influencing American politicians don't like that. And colleges, by the way. A lot of Israeli influence in colleges. Still don't think there's Jewish overlords controlling every facet of our lives. Sorry, guys. Sorry to disappoint. That's something both the far right and the far left is going to hate me for, but I'm just not buying it. The FDA suppresses natural cures. What conspiracy? First of all, the FDA is already in bed with companies like Pfizer. That's just a thing. Even Monsanto, which is responsible for Roundup, and Agent Orange. There's a lot of shady behavior between the FDA and those massive organizations. Everybody wants to talk about cronyism, but then the second you bring up companies like Pfizer, those same people might actually run defense for them. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders talking about healthcare is too expensive for the common person. Then we actually don't want to talk about the companies that are behind those pharmaceuticals. We're not going to talk about the actual companies, which they're taking money from. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about how we're just going to bitch about the price and blame the government. Government's not helping, bailing them out all the time. Trump or Biden. At least Trump's kind of trying to do something about it with that money directly to the people, not the insurance companies. I think that's interesting. I'd be open to it. I think there's a lot of potential for fraud when you're just handing out free money, basically. But I think it's an interesting approach. It's something different. And the insurance companies do lose, so that's nice. But anyway, even if you don't want to believe, the FDA is... Somebody goes, look, I found this cure for this disease, and it's super cheap, and it's super healthy, no side effects whatsoever. And the FDA says, nah, we want the expensive stuff. We want people to get addicted to the good stuff, so they just keep giving us money. They keep giving our buddies money, and then we keep getting underhanded deals from our buddies. Even if you don't want to believe something like that's going on, the amount of regulation and the cost to sell your drugs, to get your drugs approved by the FDA, it pretty much crushes competition, which is why it's cronyism, because the core of true capitalism is competition. When there's no competition, there's no method, there's no incentive to drive prices down, there's no incentive to improve product, to improve care. It's just... you're beholden to whatever the big guys have to say. The restrictions are so tight, are so expensive now, that especially people who are offering natural alternatives, there's no way they can get regulated. There's no way they can feasibly compete. Terrible experience. I was having stomach issues forever. I have celiac disease. And at first it was undiagnosed, and I was having these god-awful stomach problems. And they're like, here, take these pills. They come with a risk of making you crazy and loopy, but they'll treat you. I look it up, and it's a Pfizer-created synthetic chemical that's basically in them. And I try it, and I'm incredibly loopy. I can barely stand up. It barely even treated my stomach problems. It made me more nauseous, which wasn't helping. Opposite effect of what should happen. So I go back to the doctor, and he gives me another pill. And it's cheaper, I noticed, first of all. It's cheaper, and when I look it up, it's a smaller company. I haven't even heard of it. And the main ingredient is basically this compound that you would find in the belladonna, the nightshade family of flowers, which a lot of them, granted, are poisonous, which surprised me, but makes sense. Makes sense. It's at least natural. It's not synthetic, and it's not made by Pfizer. Sure enough, works great. No side effects whatsoever. So I'm sitting here wondering, I'm like, so if this drug is cheaper, the other one is synthetic, more expensive, known to have side effects, why would you start me out on that one? Why would you start anyone out on that one and not the natural, cheaper, less side effect alternative? I don't understand this. Unless there is a money incentive. These companies are incentivizing doctors to prescribe that first and ignore the more natural one. Try to avoid it if you can. You get the idea. Big pharma, big food, big healthcare, insurance companies, they're all in one big circle jerk, and the FDA is right in the middle. They are the pivot man. Okay. Your phone is listening to you. What conspiracy? Literally, this has been proven. First of all, if your mic isn't always hot, how does it know when you say, "Hey Siri" or "Hey Google"? A leaked pitch deck from CMG Local Solutions, a subsidiary of Cox Media Group, CMG, details a method it calls active listening. This method uses AI to combine voice data with online behavioral data to deliver hyper-targeted advertising. The deck, obtained by 404 Media, states advertisers can pair this voice data with behavioral data to target in-market consumers. It goes on to say that the technology can identify ready-to-buy customers and create ad lists based on their spoken intentions. Third-party data referred to by CMG often comes with smartphone apps that capture data, voice or otherwise, based on the end user agreeing to the terms and conditions. In other words, terms and conditions that you have to agree with, otherwise you can't actually use anything. That's how they get you. That's how they trap you. Nothing you do is private when it comes to technology. But what I do, I'm private. Said everybody who got their record ousted by hackers or the government. PETA is a psy-op by Big Meat. This is a funny conspiracy theory. The idea is that PETA is controlled opposition to make the meat industry look good. Which, to be fair, they're so fucking annoying that I think this is plausible. And that's going at the top of plausible, you know. I can't prove it. And unfortunately, I do think there are people who are just that stupid, so I can't even put it in likely. How stupid and how insane they are, I'm gonna put it in plausible. PETA might actually be a psy-op. UFOs. Okay. What is a UFO, guys? A lot of people hear UFO and they immediately think flying alien saucer. UFO stands for unidentified flying object. Not alien, not even human, just unidentified. And especially if you listen to unredacted CIA files, especially if you listen to declassified CIA information, you'll know that we actually get a lot more than they let on. Like, you remember that weird, allegedly minivan-sized drone that was seen off the coast around when Trump was getting put in office? That was a UFO. It could have just been a drone, sure, but it was a UFO. The Boogosphere. It was still an unidentified flying object. Nobody knew what the fuck it was, and it was flying. The major one that a lot of people are talking about is this one that's in the picture here. It was captured on, I think it was Air Force radar. It might have been Navy. It was captured on some government radar flying at almost impossible speeds and then just disappeared. Nobody knows what the fuck it is. I'm not saying it's aliens. It could be, but it could be some foreign craft. It could be our own experimental craft. You don't always have to jump to aliens. If you want to, by all means, go ahead. But it could also just be weird shit by our government. We know they're doing weird shit now. We know more than ever that they're always up to weird shit. So UFOs, what conspiracy? There's unidentified flying objects all the time. You know, because I don't have the proof, okay, I'll put it in likely. We don't really know what happens to these UFOs because the CIA confiscates them immediately most of the time. Some of them survive, and most of them, in that case, are the ones that are human-made and debunked. There's something sinister in the Vatican archives. I had to be kind of vague because I've heard so much about what could be in the Vatican archives. For those of you who don't know, there are miles and miles, allegedly, potentially, all that. I have to cover my ass here. There's allegedly miles of just secret, quote-unquote, burned books in the Vatican archives, under the Vatican. And I've heard so much speculation on what's in there. So much of it is probably just, again, some schizo on meth in your local trailer park thought he saw the Vatican archives in his last drug trip and now wants to talk about it. But there are some who formerly worked for the Vatican or were in the church, in like high positions of the church, and they actually come with these weird stories. Secret history that we don't know talks. Some people say there's proof of extraterrestrial. There's parts of the Bible that were redacted that we don't know that are hidden in there. There's parts of like history we don't even know that's just buried there. I've heard even like things like fountain of youth, cure to cancer, second coming of Jesus, like crazy shit like that. I've heard like so many conspiracy theories looking into this about what's actually in the Vatican archives. I like to think it could be something as crazy as what I just listed, but obviously the rational part of my brain it wants to shut it off, like religion, right? There was a point where I was in a really dark place and I just wanted to believe there was something more to this world, and I was really trying to believe in religion for a while, but the rational part of my brain, even reading the most wholesome parts of the Bible, it's like, okay, I can believe this guy existed, but is he actually the son of God or something? No, just clicked it off. I couldn't do it. I'm still... Sometimes I'm identified as agnostic, sometimes atheist. I don't fucking know anymore. And knowing how fucking shady our government is, knowing how shady the Vatican is, I want to believe there's some crazy shit, even shit as crazy as what I just listed down there, but the rational part of my brain is like, secret history, things we don't know about really famous figures and empires and stuff, I believe there's shit like that down there, for sure. And because it's the Vatican, maybe even weird stuff from the Bible. I believe there could be that down there, but as far as like extraterrestrial, things like that, and some people even think the key to simulation theory, things like that. Things like that, I'm like, I don't know. Either way, again, it's not proven. Sinister, there's something sinister in the Vatican archives. It's a generalized statement. And I'm gonna say yeah. Especially because the Vatican is shady as fuck, there probably is a sinister element to that. Epstein was CIA Mossad. What conspiracy theory? First, in case you didn't know, we have 4 clues to this, one of which was very recent, and one of the major reasons I wanted to redo this video, because it's not just clues anymore, it's like pretty much confirmed. Straight from the horse's mouth, even. First, everybody thought it was weird how little we knew about a specific part of Epstein's life. Basically, he dropped out of college, and then, I don't remember the exact age he was, maybe like late 20s, early 30s. Then he picks up a job as an Ivy League professor at a prep school, I think it was. So between dropping out of college and getting a position as a professor for an Ivy League school, what happened? There's like no documentation of it. You can look on Wikipedia, you can look in, God forbid, any articles or books about Epstein. There's like nothing about his life in that time frame. So what happened there? How does Epstein keep getting such favorability, such that despite dropping out of college, he becomes a professor? How does he know to fly under the radar and make buddy with the elite? Like the fucking Illuminati, remember? Nobody talked about this guy for years and years. Somehow we never really knew about Epstein until he was the one getting busted. And not even that. It was when the media could weaponize it. Like, how does he know to fly under the radar like that? Even when he's running these elite banking schemes, making buddy-buddy with elite people. The second clue was NSA counterintelligence officer under oath in court, claiming he was CIA. He was a CIA asset. A little later on, more recent history, James O'Keefe did one of his undercover secret recording videos, with someone who worked actively on the Epstein case. Even like the original stuff in 2005. He was basically saying, yeah, the reason they really don't want to go after him is he's CIA Mossad. So then Mossad was being implicated here. And then finally we got the latest batch of files released, including a lot of emails. And we found emails that did link him to Mossad, to CIA. Like indirect emails. Which could also explain why so many high-ranking IDF members and the former Prime Minister of Israel is in the files. A lot. So are Qatari officials and the Saudi Crown Prince, by the way. As if either of those countries need a special island to be pedophiles. Moving on. Another one of Epstein. Epstein is still alive. This one is interesting. What's the number one rule of determining death in your favorite movie series, book series, whatever? No body, no death. Did we ever get pictures of Epstein's, body, his cell? The crime scene where he allegedly killed himself? I'm not going to play the whole video. So this is Lauren the Mortician. She's awesome. She is a mortician YouTuber who talks about the process of embalming and famous cases where how bodies were presented or preserved. And Epstein was one of them. And she has something to point out.
When you watch movies and they suddenly pass away, movies lie to us. Television lies to us. Dead people on screen always look peaceful, mouth closed, perfect, calm. I always think of Snow White. She looked beautiful, right?
Yeah. That is not how dead people look. Definitely not.
Her mouth is just perfectly closed. But that's not reality. Reality is gravity. Reality is relaxation. Reality is the body doing exactly what physics tells it to do. So right out the gate, before I even look at anything else, that closed...
Picture. A second here. Yeah. That is not natural. This is allegedly a picture of Epstein's corpse. The closed mouth. Your mouth hangs open when you die. You can test this out right now, okay? Close your jaw like that. Close your jaw like that. It actually takes some tension, right? It takes tension. Now just relax. Relax your face. What does your jaw do? No tension in your face whatsoever. Do what gravity tells it to do. Let it go. What does your mouth do? It just slowly... Your jaw goes slack, and gravity just wants to naturally slowly pull your mouth open. That's what happens to dead people. Remember... For those of you who play the mortuary assistant, one of the things you had to do was basically wire the mouth closed with what looks like a freaking nail gun. It was a really gross thing. I remember a lot of people cringing at it when they played. That's a real process of embalming. The mouth always wants to hang open, so you literally have to wire it shut so it doesn't do that.
That closed mouth tells me I am not looking at a deceased person. And once I clock that, I move on to the next thing. Because the mouth isn't the only part of the body that gives this away. The eyes are next. And those...
Yes. Eyes are one of the first things to decompose, first of all. But second of all, your eyes always want to stay open. It actually takes some tension. To close your eyes like that. Especially if you hang yourself, your eyes are going to be bugging out of your skull. Epstein allegedly hanged himself. Your eyes want to bug out of your skull. They wouldn't just close like that.
Those are loud. After death, dehydration starts almost immediately. It does not wait. It does not care. The eyes are one of the first places that you can actually see it. The surface of the eyeball starts to dry out. The corneas lose that wet, reflective look. The eyes flatten and they dull. I know it's just...
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Basically, eyes wouldn't be closed like that. That's not natural.
Just a film, but in Stranger Things, when the kid is holding Eddie and the bats got to him and he's no longer alive and his eyes are just glistening. And I know he's supposed to have just died, but I'm like, it's too lifelike. It can ruin movies for you. Once you see it, you just can't unsee it.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you want to see the full video, she did a full video on Epstein's corpse, and it's super interesting. You can find it on her channel. Highly recommend. But the point being, Epstein's body was very suspicious. His alleged corpse. The mouth was closed, the eyes were closed. The face was very red, I also noticed, which usually it's the opposite. The blood doesn't want, especially if you were hanged. To hang yourself, your body would have to be upright. Blood and gravity. Gravity would naturally pull the blood out of your face and toward like your feet. Your legs and your feet might be bloated, but your face would be, if anything, really pale, really sallow, blue lips. It looked like you drowned. Your face would look like you frickin' drowned. Why was he so frickin' red? It's like he had frickin', what's that disease called? Rosacea? Looks like he had frickin' rosacea. He was so red. That's not normal for a dead body that was, especially one that was hanged. So basically, that's the conspiracy, is seeing that corpse. You can watch the video and decide what you think of this. I think likely but unproven. Amount of pull this guy had on almost the entire world. Like the entire modern world. The amount of power he had in blackmail with elite people, especially throughout America and Canada and Europe, and portions of the Middle East. The amount of pull he had, it's possible he was murdered for it, but it's also possible that the pull was so strong, they'd be willing to stage something. The world is run by satanic pedophiles. No comment. Timetravelers. Timetravelers. The conspiracy that time travel is possible, time travelers exist, and there's been a few cases where people have pointed to, like there's one guy in the crowd at JFK everybody insists he has a smartphone, and that's impossible because smartphones won't be invented for another 60 years or something. So naturally, they suspect a time traveler, even though it probably wasn't a smartphone. Greta Thunberg literally has a really old world doppelganger. So of course, the left has their own little time travel conspiracy theory that she's here to warn us about global warming. Even though you would think it's the other way around. You would think it's like she came from the future, where the global warming has allegedly ruined the world already. And then she would go back to try and fix it. She wouldn't come from the past. It's a really stupid conspiracy, one of the dumbest I've seen yet. And then, of course, we had the Charlie Kirk thing, which was Candace Owens claiming, Charlie told me he always felt like a time traveler, and I would tell him I always felt like an alien. And the way she says it, in combination with how comfortably she says a lot of things, of course, a lot of people just... Even if that was trying to be like a joke, she was trying to be a little facetious. It didn't come off well. It didn't come off well. This is actually Tartan, and that's going at the top of the list, even over Jewish overlords. No, wait, that'd go at the bottom. I'm gonna put Jewish overlords at the top because I don't like Israeli influence. Holocaust denial, that's... Man, it's hard, which of these is more dominant. Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good order. Big oil killed hydrogen cars. This comes from a conspiracy theory that one of the original people who tried developing a hydrogen fuel cell for a car was allegedly assassinated, quote-unquote. He was trying to build like a hydrogen car in the 80s, I believe. First of all, he was running into a lot of road bumps. After all the investments he got, he barely even had like a blueprint to share. So he was being forced to give a lot of the money back to investors, and some people took that as he just didn't have a product. And others took that as, oh my god, that's big oil trying to stop him. And eventually, he was having lunch with his brother. And I want to say it was multiple eyewitnesses that could attest to this, but it might have just been his brother, which, red flag. Conflicting points about that in the articles I've read about this. He was eating lunch, when very suddenly he grasps his throat, falls to the ground, and says, and pretty much screams actually, "They poisoned me." And at first, they tried to pass it off as he died of natural causes. Nobody was buying it, so they reevaluated and said, okay, it was an aneurysm. Which, granted, it's a suspicious death. I mean, who is they? Who does he think poisoned him? And B, if it's an aneurysm, when he grasped at his head, why his throat? The throat sounds like he swallowed something, and he felt the reaction immediately. That's something like a gnarly poison would do. And the autopsy said no poison known to man was responsible for killing him. Some people point to a cover-up, some people say the coroner was bought or something, right? Which there comes a point where you're like, okay, how deep does big oil run to have this kind of influence over, like, a coroner's report or something? I don't know. As it stands, it's a suspicious death, but as far as, like, the motive being the hydrogen fuel cell, because that's a threat to big oil, right? Water-powered cars, that could be revolutionary. The problem is, that guy wasn't the only one who was developing a hydrogen fuel cell. As a matter of fact, there were people more successful than him working on their own. Like, out of their garage. Hippies in California working on it out of their garage. And something tells me they'd make much easier targets than that guy. So if the motive was just to prevent the construction of water-powered cars, why just him? Why not everybody else that was working on a hydrogen fuel cell, including BMW? As you can see in the picture there, BMW is currently working on their own hydrogen fuel cell. Now granted, you could say BMW is a major car company, they're in bed with big oil or something. There were many conspiracy theories about this with electric cars too, when they were first kind of in talks and coming up. I'm gonna say this is not likely. It's a suspicious death, and maybe there was something weird about the death itself, but the motive being to crush the production of hydrogen fuel cells, there's just not enough proof, because why just him? There were other people who were working on hydrogen fuel cells that were doing it with no interruption. 9/11 was an inside job. I think a bunch of terrorists, I think a bunch of pissed off Muslims, hijacked a plane and flew it into the towers. I also believe that it was extremely suspicious that the CIA was talking to Osama bin Laden just before and after 9/11 happened. Potentially even during. Like, it's one of those things where our government is doing shady shit, but I also don't think that was completely staged. That's going in not likely. I think it's a 1% to less than 1% chance that it was Bush. Bush would be that much of a douchebag, granted, but I also think that's too much. Maybe I'm just a pleb of a conspiracy theorist. I'm not there yet. I have to evolve. AI trains itself on your data. What conspiracy? Oh, this is an interesting one. Gene tracing companies will sell... Let me zoom in. Yeah. Gene tracing orgs sell your results to the government. I think that's really interesting. Because, and you know what? What conspiracy? The conspiracy theorists want you to believe that these gene tracing organizations, you get your result, they trace your results, and they make a copy, and it's going into some government database, as well as back to you. And that happens with everybody who sends their genes in. I don't know about that. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. Anything can come out of the government, and I'm not going to be shocked at this point. Oh my god. But the reason I say what conspiracy for this one instead of likely but unproven is because we actually do have true crime stories. I think this happened like a couple times. Well, it only happened like a couple times, but it was still enough times to prove this happens, and this can happen. Either a relative of the suspect or the suspect themselves went through this gene tracing thing, trying to find out their heritage or find relatives or whatever. And the government got the gene tracing organization to hand over their results so they could find the suspect. I mean, great, we found a murderer, potentially a mass murderer, that's great. At the same time, it's proof that under duress, if nothing else, these gene tracing organizations are willing to sell your data to the government. Not just data online, but your genetic data. That's kind of creepy to think about. Just me? It's kind of creepy to think about, for me. Granted, it's only happened with suspects in murder cases so far. Like, you need an outstanding reason to get this to happen, but it's proof that it can happen. So, what conspiracy? It's happened. Okay, oh, this is an interesting one. The Stanley R. Michelson complex is a psy-op, Illuminati base, etc. Look at that building, and tell me that's not just fodder for conspiracy theorists. It's unfinished, first of all, so you know damn well it was going to be a big old pyramid with what looks like an abstract eyeball on it. You know that's gonna get people talking. But the story of this place is basically, it was built on pretty much the Canadian border in North Dakota. North Dakota. It was like a $500 million project, which back then was actually a lot of money. Basically, it was supposed to be like a monitoring thing, like a missile monitoring base or something. But it was a failed project, and they abandoned it one day after it was open. One day. And I believe they sold it to some like weird culty Christian group. Point being, it's a weird place, and there's just so much of it you just can't help asking why. Like, what was the actual purpose? And why build it in this manner? So, of course, some people think it's an Illuminati base, some people think it was for more nefarious reasons. Like, it was supposed to be, you know, some child sacrificing temple for the Clintons or something, right? I'm gonna put it in plausible, not because of what I just said. I just feel like a project this elaborate and it was abandoned just one day after it opened. I feel like there was something weird that happened there that they're just not talking about. And it's such a weird building. It's like, what is the purpose of this? Is it really just like a missile detection base? Like, that's the thing. I don't know. It's so weird. It's so weird. Alaskan HARP is a mind control lab. So in Alaska, there's this big old network of antennas. It looks like a wind farm, but with antennas. It's really trippy looking. And the purpose is to, like, High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HARP, is a scientific endeavor aimed at studying the properties and behavior of the ionosphere. The ionosphere stretches roughly 50 to 40 miles above Earth's surface, right at the edge of space. Along with the neutral upper atmosphere, the ionosphere forms the boundary between Earth's lower atmosphere, where we live and breathe, and the vacuum of space. Operation of the research facility was transferred from the United States Air Force to the University of Alaska Fairbanks on August 11, 2015, allowing HARP to continue the exploration of the ionospheric phenomenology via a land-use cooperative research and development. I probably still sound like a tard just trying to read this. HARP is the world's most capable, high-power, high-frequency transmitter for study of the ionosphere. Yeah, so basically it's transmitter. It's transmitting waves basically into the ionosphere so it can record the response or whatever. Basically, it's just for studying the atmosphere and the upper atmosphere and the border of space. But some people believe those antennas are so powerful and there's so many of them, it's a mind control lab. The evidence for which is just, hey, look how weird this place is. I'm gonna put it in, I'd say Jewish Overlords is still more plausible than that. Oh boy, I'm gonna get cancelled for this video, aren't I? Elvis has seen it, Grace's son. Oh, in other words, Elvis is still alive. Nope. That's tarded. Let go, guys. Let him go. Satanic Zeppelin. The idea that Led Zeppelin intentionally hid satanic messages in their songs, if you play their vinyls backwards, or play their songs backward, period. I would like to refer you to Steve Terraberry on YouTube, Stevie T. Look up his video about satanic messages and backwards songs. He specifically has one for Zeppelin, and their most infamous song, Stairway to Heaven. He'll give you the scoop on that. But I'm gonna say it's actually tarded. Yeah, more tarded than Lizard? Nah, maybe not. It's a bunch of hippies that were high on LSD and just making music that they never thought would succeed. I don't think they're satanic. Government controls the weather. What conspiracy? Cloud seeding is a real thing, guys. Literally, cloud seeding introduces substances into clouds that promote precipitation. This happens. This has been happening. What do you think half the chemtrails in the air are? A lot of them are trying to promote clouds and rain. Dubai does this all the time, and it can happen. It can even do snow now, as you can see here, snow and ice. And some people think it's like biowarfare because the chemicals that make the clouds obviously are still in the clouds when they rain or snow. So a lot of people have questions about what those chemicals are doing to us or something. But governments do this all the time, including ours. I think Tennessee was one of the first states to actually put a ban on chemtrails, period, including cloud seeding. So in other words, the idea that the government is intentionally creating big hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff and manufacturing earthquakes and stuff, that I can understand your skepticism for, and I won't blame you for that. But as far as, like, we can artificially make certain weather, that's already answered. Even if it's just making it rain when we want to, that's still some level of control over the weather. What conspiracy? Jewish space lasers. For the record, there are actually lasers in space. NASA just tested one out in 2024, I believe, but it's like a communication laser. It's like the laser you would find in your laptop. It's not actually like not a freaking Star Wars laser. It's not exploding Hawaii or something. And there's, maybe Israel has their own version, but as far as I know, the only one that I know about is, it's actually owned by Elon, so... by SpaceX and stuff, so yeah, that's going right next to our Jewish overlords. You know what? I'm bumping this down under fake. I can wrap my head around the Israeli government doing shady shit. I can't wrap my head around Jewish space lasers. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just a pleb conspiracy theorist. Not there yet. The CIA, this is an interesting one. The CIA made diseases. There's a conspiracy theory that the CIA made Lyme disease, that they made SARS, I think, and that they made, most importantly, HIV/AIDS. And it was an attempt to... Don't think so. I mean, a lot of people in America have been used as guinea pigs, many against their will. From, like, experimental vaccines that they got without being told about, irradiated oatmeal being fed to orphans and foster care kids and stuff. The Tuskegee syphilis experiments, it's really sad just how many times the government has used us as guinea pigs. There's even a conspiracy, like, with the radium craze and the lead in the water that we discussed, that was intentional. Like, to see our response to lead and radium, and when we finally found out, it wasn't just the money incentive to not compensate us or whatever, it was... they were trying to keep the experiment going and document the results fully. Obviously, that also ties back into the fluoridated water. One of the biggest reasons for the pushback is that they want the results. It's really sad how many times the government has used us, and how many times other governments have used their people as just literal guinea pigs. But did the CIA manufacture AIDS or HIV? That much... I'm just gonna say not likely. What's weird is so many of these diseases didn't seem to exist before the modern times. But to be fair, so did most of our foods. So most of the chemicals that we're regularly subjecting ourselves to. And so were a lot of human behaviors also, like, really scorned upon and not really openly discussed. Like a major one that only actually started getting traction in the late 70s and 80s was being openly gay. People were getting gay even in biblical times, alright? That's been a thing for a while. As far as, like, being openly and making it a widespread thing, that only really happened after, like, the 60s and stuff. And even in the 70s, it was still really new, it was still really taboo. It was only in, like, by the time of, like, the AIDS outbreak that, like, gay behavior was everywhere. That's what led to more of the anti-gay sentiment of that time period. You get what I'm saying, right? Like, a lot of these diseases could be explained by new food, new chemicals, and new or exacerbated human behavior. Hopefully that makes sense. And finally, the other secret society that I really want to talk to about in a dedicated video. Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove is a real place. It is a club for the elite, especially the elite of California. So you got a lot of Hollywood actors. You got a lot of You got a lot of California politicians, even some presidents. I believe even Reagan was there. Cannot confirm or deny. It might have been someone else I'm thinking of. But you get the point. Clinton. Bill Clinton, of course, also there. And what we know undeniably is that this is a place where they do weird sketches at a private theater. Normal people and journalists are pretty much forbidden. There are even a lot of rumors about the dead bodies found on the grounds of Bohemian Grove. Like, you'll get shot if you try to infiltrate. The testimony of workers is really mixed. A lot of people just say, Nothing weird going on except for what you would expect from a bunch of drunk rich men and female workers. That's the biggest scandal that they have there. And then some will say there's like hidden rooms, there's weird shit going on. I can't explain a lot of it. There's divided testimony from the workers there. But one thing that we also, courtesy of Alex Jones, who at the time was an investigative journalist, not just an InfoWars host, was he actually recorded part of a ceremony that they have, which was they dress up. Some people act like these woodland sprites. Some people wear these red robes like they're kind of priests or something. They carve up this wooden effigy that they call Care. They push it out onto the lake, so it arrives at that creepy owl statue, surrounded by the trees. They light it on fire, and then they start frolicking. Where the conspiracy comes in is that it's not just some sort of paganistic, satanic sort of feely thing with the fire and the weird owl statue. There's also rumors of like child sacrifice and stuff like that. Like they burn children at the foot of the owl. And one of the biggest places this comes up is this guy who was investigating a child trafficking ring that involved some elite people, including members of a three-letter agency. And when he was talking to one of his interviewers, he mentioned that he saw a child snuff film, and it happened at the foot of this big stone owl statue surrounded by big trees, like redwoods, where Bohemian Grove is found. And then later on, years later, photos of Bohemian Grove were leaked, and then they showed those photos in that place to the investigator, and he confirmed, oh my god, that was the place in the video. And they tried to get police to look into this, but it kept getting shut down. Nobody wanted to look into this. Now granted, a lot of it is hearsay, but it's a really creepy story regardless. It's not like this was some random guy this was like a guy who was actively investigating these sorts of child trafficking rings that included elites. Like, this was his job. This is what he did. And he was talking about this place before the photos were leaked. I don't know if both photos of Bohemian Grove were on the internet, or just available in general, in the time period that he talked about this. Maybe, maybe not. It's just creepy, right? So Bohemian Grove, and the other thing about Bohemian Grove is, and the rumors about child sacrifice and eating babies and stuff. Look in the latest batch of the Epstein files, guys. Look at what George Bush Sr. is described to be doing, what the Clintons are described to be doing. Look at what the girls had to say when they were abused and their babies were taken, never to be seen again. I know it's horrifying. I was barely able to get through a full video talking about it. It was so absolutely disgusting. Another coin for the Alex Jones is right tip jar. This very well could... That's just what was happening on Epstein's island. There's no proof of association that I know of between Bohemian Grove and Epstein. But a lot of the same faces that you would associate with Epstein and those files, they also happen to come up at Bohemian Grove a lot. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Now, of course, allegedly, possibly, all that, I have to be safe. I have to cover my ass here. I'm gonna put inconclusive. I don't have the proof. I don't know if I can say likely. I definitely can't say not likely. I also don't feel like plausible is a strong enough word. Even more than the COVID psy-op. Inconclusive. That is my black-pilled conspiratorial list. Let me know what you think. And again, if you want to try this for yourself, with a buddy for fun, even though it's kind of sad too, or if you want to stream it, it'll be available on the Tiermaker website. For this video though, like, comment, subscribe, tiermaker.com, Conspiracy Theories 1 by Cinder Soleil. That's all I got. My friends, my spectators, thank you so much for watching, and farewell.